Hi, Sanaiyah!
Hi, Bianca. I'm so excited to be here.
I am super thankful that you said yes to give advice. Welcome to Paano ba to?
Thank you. It is my pleasure.
Sanaiyah is going to give us advice. Well, this is a problem actually that a lot of people have been sending me messages about. The past few months have been very challenging, and the coming months are so uncertain. So the question is, what is your advice on finding hope and motivation despite the uncertainty of the future?
I think it has a lot to do with perspective. So when we focus on everything that's going wrong, then we miss out on all these positives that could come out of the situation. And so in coaching or in therapy, we use a technique called framing. You can look at a glass half empty or half full. It's your choice, but it really is the same thing. So I think what's important is for individuals out there to look at the situation, but also to see that, yes, there are a lot of things that are not in your control. There are a lot of things that are, out of our hands. There is so much uncertainty about what will happen tomorrow. What we do have certainty about is what we can control in our own space, what we can do to cope with it. And so I think that if we can be in control of our reactions, and we can control where our thoughts go. So for example, our thoughts can go to worst case scenario. And if you think about worst case scenario, you're not going to feel any better. You're just going to feel more hopeless, more helpless, and more powerless. But if you instead direct your thoughts towards what are the things you can do in this situation? Can you help others? Can you work on your health? Can you exercise more? Can you catch up on reading? Are there things that you can do with your time that are actually going to have a positive effect on your life instead of, focusing all those things that there's nothing you can do except think about it? There's no action you can take. Reframing the situation and choosing the right perspective will really help people to get through the current situation and everything that may or may not happen ahead of this.
Right. You mentioned something again and again that is also a very common issue. I'm guilty of this, overthinking. What is your advice to people who are struggling with the problem of overthinking?
It's a really good question because overthinking has the same root issue. When people are overthinking, they're trying to control the situation. So it's like, let me think about it. Let me think about all the different ways I can think about it. And maybe that'll give me back a sense of control. But you're never going to get that sense of control because those aren't things that are in your hands. Here we are trying to think and think and think and try to figure out a solution to a problem that's really not our problem necessarily. We don't own that problem. It's a problem everybody else is going through. And so we think, and then it puts us in a fear state. And every time we're in a state of worry, anxiety, fear, right, we release cortisol, which is a stress hormone in our body, right? So we release it from our pituitary gland in our brain. We release cortisol in our adrenal gland. And so our body is now in this stressed out mode. It thinks that it has to prepare for, something terrible that's going to happen. And you're just releasing more and more cortisol, which is causing your body to overproduce adrenaline. So all these things are happening, which is making it very hard for you to calm down. So what you got to do is stop thinking those thoughts. Stop overthinking, stop focusing, and try to, again, direct your thought to something else. Even better, you can meditate. Because if you're meditating, then you're interrupting your thoughts. Then you're going into like a thoughtless, mindless state. So the idea is stop thinking at all. And that would be the best thing for your body because your body will actually start to calm down. You'll feel better. Your immunity will improve and you can actually make better decisions in your life. In terms of overthinking, there's actually no benefit to overthinking. We can, however, process things. We can work on directing our thoughts to something more positive. For example, watch a comedy, read a book, learn something, do something for other people, pray. So there's so many things that we can do with our time instead of thinking about all the things that we really cannot control.
I love that you pointed out that it's hormonal. Like the way you pointed it out, it's like, okay, if it starts, we're sort of digging our own grave if we keep overthinking because that hormone will keep coming out.
Producing, yeah. And so stress and anxiety and fear, they're all hormonal. And anytime we have like an overproduction of cortisol or adrenaline in our body, which are both associated with those feelings, with those emotions, then we're actually affecting every part of our body in a negative way because we're putting pressure now on the different organs that have to cope with all this adrenaline and cortisol. So it's actually scientific and medical in terms of what we're doing to our body with the negative emotions that we keep thinking or creating in our body because of our negative thoughts and our overthinking, sometimes even overreacting.
That is so enlightening. Okay, now that you mentioned that, I need to go to the notes in my phone because just the other day I watched the masterclass of Robin Roberts. So she's the journalist in Good Morning America. And in one of her classes there, she said this line: "You have to change the way you think to change the way you feel." And that immediately popped in my head when you were explaining. So tell me about this line and what you think about it.
I'm so glad you asked this because this is actually a really important understanding for a lot of people to have. Everything in our life, okay, Bianca, everything begins with a thought. So before we do any action, whether we're aware or not, it's a thought that precedes it. So everything begins with our thoughts. Now, our thoughts can be positive or negative. If our thoughts are positive, you're going to feel really good. You're going to be happy. You're going to feel excited. You're going to feel inspired because the thought is positive. On the flip side, if your thought is negative, now you're going to feel kind of low. You're going to feel like unhappy, frustrated, angry, powerless, helpless, all the negative emotions you could experience from these negative thoughts. Now, whether our emotions are positive or negative, they're going to impact our energy in our body. So we all know, right? There's energy flowing through our body. The Chinese call it qi, the Japanese call it ki. In the Indian culture, they call it prana. So there's energy flowing through our body through our energy meridians. Again, in the Indian culture, they call it chakras. In Chinese medicine, it's your energy meridians, and that's why you have like acupressure, acupuncture. So there is that understanding and knowledge about our body. Now, when we're thinking positive emotions, the energy is flowing harmoniously. It's just moving around our body in a very calm, very smooth and efficient manner. And the energy is getting distributed to every part of our body that needs it. Now, on the other hand, if we are thinking negative thoughts, which then bring up negative emotions, these negative emotions are essentially going to interrupt the energy flow in our body. It's going to cause energy to get stuck in different areas. It's going to cause energy to be depleted in certain areas, and parts of your body is actually missing energy flow. And when you're missing energy flow in that part of the body eventually will experience pain, discomfort, disease, some kind of a breakdown because it's not getting energy. Right? Like if we don't eat food, our body is going to get weaker and weaker. We have to feed our body food, unless you're a breatharian, but that's a different story. We need to give our body enough energy. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to function. And so when that energy flow is disturbed because of the negative emotions and the negative thoughts, then what you will get is anxiety, stress, depression. Physically, you will get disease, discomfort, dysfunction, and it will actually go out into your life and bring you back negative experiences as well. So it all boils back to the thoughts we're thinking, which are going to create these negative situations for us. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm so fascinated.
That's why we say our thoughts create disease. It's what we think that creates stress and disease in the body.
I'm learning so much, and for everyone watching, I'm super excited because I actually have a healing session with Sanaiyah in a few days. My first ever. I'm super excited. So just to end, I guess, if it's okay that I ask a final question.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned negative emotions and its connection to negative thoughts, but there are some times that the negative emotions just pop up, whether it's meant or not. How do we get ourselves out of feeling the negative emotions?
That's a good question. So most of the time, right, Bianca, when we are feeling a negative emotion, it's not usually because of the situation that we're facing right now, especially the ones that like sneak up on you. You know, it's like you just got caught unaware or it just instantly comes up, right? And you're like, what happened? You know, those kind of emotions are not like one-off emotions. That means it's not because of that situation. It's because that situation or something similar has happened over and over and over again. So you're not reacting. You're not reacting to that situation. You're reacting to all those situations in the past where you felt the same way. Becoming aware is the key. Understanding, it's because I'm feeling this way. Okay. I had a client the other day and she was going through a lot of anxiety and stress. And I asked her, well, why are you feeling this way? When did it start? And she said, well, it started ever since I realized I have to go take a flight because she's traveling from one city to another. And so once she understood that the anxiety was because of that, she was able to control it better. She was able to process it better. So we need to understand, where are these emotions coming from? Why am I feeling that way? What is this really about?
Process and unpack, I guess, right? Unpack the emotions and where it's coming from. Oh my goodness, I learned so much in just a few minutes of speaking with you. It's always a pleasure, Sanaiyah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Bianca.
And to anyone who wants more enlightening conversations with Sanaiyah, I will be the one to promote this for you. Please search for the Project Loving Myself podcast. It is a wonderful podcast hosted by Sanaiyah. Thanks, Sanaiyah.
Thanks so much.
Bye.